shall burn eternal. My soul burn.
Hey everyone, Amarathi back, and we have another Druid build guide. This one is the Locust Swarms. The Locust Swarm has been changed in patch 085, and I've had this build kind of sitting in the background in the previous patches, and it just never felt really good to play and did like the bare minimum amount of viable damage. But now we've had some big changes, and we've got like the permanent RF or fire aura or whatever you want to call it. We are doing huge screen wide AoE all the time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Swan Blade form. We're going to summon our hives. With that, all four of them, we're going to hit our hives. And we're going to have a very big, very high damage. I'm in 200 corruption, as you can see right now. Easily just like swap into werebear form and rampage around with it. And look how long it's lasting. It's lasting so long. This build is crazy. I can anticipate a nerf. As you've seen in the earlier footage, I did manage to AFK kill some bosses at the start. So I expect this to get a little bit nerfed, but let's get into the build. Okay, now to demonstrate how this build is working, this is probably one of the most budget-friendly builds because you do not need like any damaging affixes on your gear whatsoever. Your Swarm Strike, or your Locust Swarm rather, for each Locust it consumes is going to give us a whole heap of flat damage and a whole heap of percent increased damage thanks to our talents. So that is by far all we need to do to actually get the build working. And so when you look at my gear, right, I've got like no added damage on my sword. I'm not running any idols. Like really not a lot of stuff that's like build enabling. This is all just defensives, and probably like Atrophy and Eterra's Path are the only uniques I would encourage for the build. And then I'm just like using a Bleeding Heart and a Negasar Scimitar with just like, I'm going for the leech, not the melee hit there, just flat melee damage as leech. That is the only thing gearing wise that you need, and the rest is all in the build itself. So let's get into what's happening. And we're going to have a quick look at our Swan Blade tree to demonstrate what's going on. So the Swan Blade form, we're going to come across here. We're going to get additional locusts from hives. Now this got patched from a base of 6 locusts to 8, plus these additional 4 from the Grand Colony, meaning we have 12 locusts per hive. And then we're going to get 2 additional maximum hive, giving us 4 maximum hives. So, you know, 4 times 12 is 48. So 48 is kind of like our standard amount of hives. And we want to get them all out quickly. So we're going to use Release the Horde, and that's going to look like release 3 at a time. So I'll just quickly demonstrate how that's working. So we do our summon hives. We want to put them all on top of each other, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to give our 48 locusts. And then we Swarm Strike. And we get this huge amount of damage. Huge amount of damage. Going absolutely screen wide. So that is basically the core of the build, because at 48 locusts, you've got like 48 times the base would be 12 melee physical and 12 melee poison. We are taking the conversion to convert it all into cold. The reason why we're doing that is because we have access to a lot of cold penetration. And it allows us to, if we wanted to increase, we could just focus on doing 1 stat, which is really nice. Not needed, but like you've got so much flat damage. Like no build is even coming close to the amount of flat damage that this is doing. And then we look at this node over here, right? And we're getting 60% increased damage per locust. So 60% times 48. Like once again, we're getting a few thousand % increased damage. So because of that, we've got the largest flat damage of a skill that I've ever seen with a few 1000% increased, which is not like achievable from gear alone. That's all the damage you need. You don't need anything else. The rest is really just there to support it and give you a little bit extra. So what we're doing is we're taking the 4 points in here for the additional duration. Keeping in mind, the patch has also made it so that you have increased duration per locust that you consume in the locust swarm. And then this is a further multiplier on top of that, which is why it's lasting like 30-40 seconds. I think the longest I've seen is actually lasting a minute. We're taking this. I don't think that this gets multiplied by all the increased duration, but it is just a nice way to swap into the werebear form and get the rampage going. But that's really it from the Swarmblade tree. It's not really meant to do anything else. If you had additional points, you could go for Carnage if you wanted more damage, but I much prefer the utility of how this is laid out. I just find it much easier. Werebear tree, fairly straightforward. It's really just a run bear, right? So we want rampage, we want cleanse, we want the increased movement speed, and I am doing the entangling roots stuff. You do not need to do the entangling roots. The entangling roots is not important. It's just something, right? So the entangling roots, for reference, the main reason I did entangling roots is just because it gives like a little bit of a root, and also you can get some cold res shred, so 5 stacks of that, just to assist with your damage overall. Not important, not needed, doesn't matter all that much. Lastly, we have the Spriggan form. So I'm using the Gardener range setup just to assist, make sure that I'm not popping out of any one form. It's not really needed because I'm not spending that much rage, so decay is kind of like the only thing that's happening. But it's nice, and the Terrace Path boots are obviously like a very good set of boots. So that's like all I need. However, the one thing you can also do is in the Spriggan form, you can use this to boss, and so I'm going to demonstrate how you do that. Thanks to this node here, when you go into Swarmblade form, you can take 2 of your vines and convert them into hives. So we talked about having 48 locusts total before. This is going to give an extra 24 on top of that, pushing into the 60s. So what we would do is we would go Spriggan form, and what I forgot to mention as well is that we will be taking Ice Branch to do the conversion so that we can use our Scales of a Terror only for bosses. We don't care about it for monoliths, only for bosses. We do this, right? We see how there's a few vines. What we're going to do is we're going to do 1 Spirit Thorns. That'll take the Cold Infusion. So we start doing that. We pop into our form like that. And at 10. And that's going to drastically boost the damage. I did a 57 Locust Swarm here with 80% more damage. And that is why I can basically just walk into a boss room. So I'll go through that play again because it does take a little bit to understand what's happening there. Whoops, wrong form. Wrong form. But yeah, you'd be able to just go into werebear form. You could do this at the start of a monolith as well. But for the monoliths, you prefer to just use a shield, use a bastion, or just a regular shield. Doesn't really matter too much. So once again, what we'll be doing is we go Spriggan form. As soon as I do my first Spirit Thorns, that's going to start the counter for the Scales of a Terror, because you need to cast a cold spell. Remember, you need a cold Scales of a Terror to do this. So we go Spirit Thorns, and then we're going to summon all our vines, and then we're going to hop into Spriggan form. So we go that, do all our vines, Spriggan form like this, knock them, 8, 9, and 10. There we go. And you could just do this away when the boss isn't looking at you. Like, you don't need to do it at any particular point. All right. So as I said, items they don't matter. The skills outside of the Swarmblade don't matter. I've got like a Spriggan going, but he's not going to live all that much. I don't really care about him. It's just it's just a skill. You could use like Warcry. You could use Maelstrom and get them through your various means in werebear form or in Swarmblade form. But for the most part, like, this build is done and it's just utility. For passives, once again, just to like go as defensive as possible, you definitely want to pick up Survival of Pack for the additional leech. That's very important. It is melee damage. It's melee dot, one of the 2 skills in the game that are melee dot, the other being the Earthquake Aftershocks that you can make them dot. We've got the Berserker. That would work with this if we wanted to do low life, but we don't need to. It's already plenty of damage on its own. Ignore the dual wielding. I just like to keep that in the builds if I'm doing testing. For the Beastmaster, we're going to take our very stereotypical setup of just getting aspect to the boar. You don't need to go for the primal strength because you're not really attacking with melee hits. No points in Shaman, and then the Druid. So the reason why we did Cold is because we've got access to both Primordial Resonance for the 10% Elemental Penetration there, and the Piercing Gale, so 8 points there for the 24% Cold. So that is 34% Cold Penetration, and then the rest of the nodes should look fairly familiar, you know, going for the Thorn Shield, you know, Armor Endurance, Strength Attunement, Attack Speed. The Harmonious Wisdom is a bit of a staple. I've got 2 points in Primordial Shifter, not needed. 10 points in Hide Skin. And you can see I've still got 7 points left over, so I could do things with that. You know, I could go for the Toxic Rage and move points around if I wanted to. I could go for like Feated Resilience. I could go for whatever I want. Overgrowth sounds good. I could put them in the Shaman tree for the Shamanistic Infusion. I'm just showing you the bare bones. I'm going to let you guys experiment with the build and see what it is. Like I said, I've got no idols in. There's probably some good things, but for me, I'm just using like the increased health blessing. As for my my actual blessings, right? It's mostly just resistances, so you can see I've got the Void Res there, the Lightning Res there, All Res, Endurance, and Endurance Threshold. You can go for the Critical Strike Avoidance. Just keep like your regular defensive blessings. No stress as to what you want to do there. And Atrophy for the additional penetration is really the only unique I would recommend as a staple for this build, but that's pretty easy to get. All right, that's it, guys. That's the build. Have some fun with it. If you've got any further questions, just leave a comment down below and I will get back to you. This is an awesome build. It'll probably be nerfed. It's probably one of the best monolith farmers at the moment. So if you want to run through monoliths and just instantly kill everything and go as fast as possible, this is the build. All right, till next time, guys.